ओम सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्त्वं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Yesterday, while studying about Holy Mother's bashfulness and adjustability without giving up her principles, it was said that you will understand it from the description of her first visit to Dakshineshwar and from the event mentioned below, how easily and naturally she could, whenever necessary arose, free herself from all habits and past impressions and behave correctly without the least fear or hesitancy. And in that description of her first visit to Dakshineshwar, I promised you that today we shall read that. And from the event mentioned below that we read yesterday. So now we go back to, if you have the books and if you want to take out, in the first volume, the second part, Sadhak Bhav, 20th chapter, chapter number 20. And we should read that chapter from the beginning to know the connection and the first visit. So, that chapter 20 of the Sadhak Bhav of the first volume. The heading is the worship of Shodashi. The Holy Mother was very young when she saw the Master for the first time after the marriage. When the Master went with the Bhairavi Brahmani and Hriday to Kamarpukur, his native village, in 1867, the women relatives, as we mentioned before, had his wife brought there. That was in reality the first occasion when the Holy Mother met her husband. Anyone who has had the opportunity of comparing the young girls of towns like Calcutta with those of villages like Kamarpukur will have noticed, it's all in olden times, will have noticed that the bodies and minds of town-bred girls become developed in an earlier age than those of the villages. That is true. In villages, girls of 14 and sometimes 15 or 16 do not have the physical signs of their youth fully developed. Their minds also, like their bodies, develop late. This is so perhaps because they have not to live in small places, cribbed and cabined like birds confined in cages, but live their lives in a natural way, breathing pure air and roaming freely about in their village. The Holy Mother, therefore, was very young when at the age of 14, she met her husband for the first time. Her powers of understanding the profound ideal and responsibility of married life were just at the point of unfolding themselves. because after marriage she continued to stay in her village. Her powers of understanding the profound ideal and responsibility of married life were just at the point of unfolding themselves. At that time, the pure girl was delighted, experiencing an indescribable celestial bliss in having the divine company of the Master. See the words, huh? Pure girl experiencing an indescribable celestial bliss in having the divine company of the Master. Devoid of body consciousness, Master was devoid of body consciousness and enjoying his selfless love and attention. On many occasions, she used to describe that delight of hers to the women devotees of the Master, saying, "My heart remained incessantly so very full of an indescribable bliss that I have always felt since then, as if a jar of bliss full to overflowing was installed in my heart." That heart itself is the joy jar. When in a few months the master returned to Calcutta from Kamarpukur, the girl went to her father's home, feeling at heart that she was in possession of an infinite wealth of bliss. Infinite. The feeling of that delight, we clearly understand, produced a change in all her conduct, speech, movement, work, etc. That delight produced changes in all her conduct, speech, movement, work, etc. But it is doubtful whether people in general could notice it, because the changes were all inside, making her go inside and inside. For it made her calm and not fickle. Meeting the husband, the mind could become fickle, but here it became calm. Thoughtful and not pert. Pert means just thinking of the bad side. Selfless and not self-seeking. Naturally what happens in married girls, and opposite of that is happening in Holy Mother, because the bliss she received was indescribable, infinite. And by removing from her heart the feeling of all kinds of want. Because what do we get by those wants? Finally, some happiness. And she has the bliss, infinite. So happiness seeking itself is gone. Made her infinitely sympathetic to the sorrows and miseries of humanity. So when her heart is full, she looks to others. Sympathetic to the sorrows and miseries of humanity, converting her by degrees into an embodiment of compassion itself. That is what Sadhana Swami has seen in Holy Mother. On account of the influence of this joy, even endless physical suffering now appeared to her to be of no consequence, and she felt no pain at all if her care and affection for others were not returned. So much selfless without expecting anything, she has become kind. She is giving only now, she does not want anything. Thus, content with the barest physical necessities and lost in herself, the girl lived then in her father's house only physically. The mind dwelling far away at Dakshineshwar at the feet of the Master. Although a strong desire arose now and again in her mind to go to him and see him, the girl controlled it and was patient, thinking all the while that he who graciously loved her so much at her first meeting with him, could never forget her and would surely call her to him at the proper time. So patience infinite, thus passed days, one after another, and the girl, firm in her faith, awaited that auspicious day. 4 long years passed one after another, but the strong current of hope and longing kept on flowing uniformly in the girl's mind. Hope and longing is there, but waiting. Her body, however, did not continue in the same state as her mind, but changing daily, it made her a young woman of 18 in 1872. Although the bliss due to her first meeting with her godlike husband kept her high above the daily pain and pleasure, is there the possibility of pure, unadulterated bliss in this world? Why? In their gossip, the menfolk of the village made cutting remarks that her husband was mad, that he cast away even his wearing apparel and roamed about naked, repeating Hari Hari, etc. This menfolk is talking. And the women of her age alluded to her as a madman's wife and looked upon her as an object of pity or contempt. She was much pained at heart by all this, but said nothing. Absorbed in the thought of the master, she sometimes yielded to doubts. Is he then not the same person as I saw before? Has such a change as people say really come on him? If by the decree of providence it has actually happened, I must no longer be here. I must be by his side and serve him. That was the thing. Oh. She reflected a great deal and came to the conclusion that she should personally go to Dakshineshwar and have all her doubts cleared in the light of facts and do what she ought to. Now, incident happened. Sri Chaitanya was born on the full moon day of the month of Falgun, the day of the Dol Yatra, a day of festivity in which Sri Krishna is swung in a swing. Dol Yatra. Many people from the farthest end of Bengal come every year to Calcutta to bathe on that occasion in the holy waters of the Ganga. A few women distantly related to the Holy Mother had decided that they should go there on that occasion that year. She went to them and expressed her desire to go for a bath in the Ganga. That was the pretext. Thinking that it was not reasonable to take her with them without her father's permission, the ladies asked her father, Ramchandra Mukhopadhyay, about it. As soon as the intelligent father heard it, he understood why his daughter wanted to go to Calcutta and made all arrangements to take her himself there. Thanks to the railways, the distance between Calcutta and far off Kashi or Vrindavan has now vanished. But not having that blessing in those days, Kamarpukur, the birthplace of the master, and Jarambati, the birthplace of the Holy Mother, lay as far as ever from Calcutta. This is so even now, that means Saradananda's time, let alone those times. In those days, the railway lines had not yet been laid either via Vishnupur or via Tarkeshwar, nor was Ghatal connected with Calcutta by steamer. Therefore, the people of those villages had no other course than to travel by palanquin or on foot. And all people except the rich, such as zamindars and others, used to have recourse to the latter. So, accompanied by his daughter and other companions, Ramchandra started on the long journey on foot. All of them walked with delight for the first 2 or 3 days. They saw one paddy field after another and ponds full of lotuses and enjoyed the cool shades of trees like the people and the banyan. But that delight did not continue up to the destination. Unaccustomed to the fatigue of journeys, Ramchandra's daughter had a severe attack of fever on the way, which made the father very anxious. Knowing it impossible to proceed further when his daughter was in that condition, he halted at an inn and stayed there. What a terrible anguish the Holy Mother felt in her heart on account of the illness on that way cannot be described. Like all hopes dashed. But she had a wonderful vision which consoled her. She sometimes used to describe this vision in the following way to her woman devotees. I lost all consciousness on account of high temperature and was lying, unable even to look to the propriety of my dress when I saw a girl come and sit beside me. The girl was black in complexion, but I never had seen such beauty before. She sat by me and began to pass her hand over my head and body. Her hand was so soft and cool that the heat and the burning sensation of my body began to subside. I asked her affectionately, may I know where you come from? The girl said, I come from Dakshineshwar. Astonished to hear it, I said, from Dakshineshwar? I thought of going there to see him and serve him. But as I have got this fever on my way, I shall not have the good fortune of fulfilling that desire. Why not? Said the girl. You will surely go to Dakshineshwar. Getting well, you will go there and see him. It is for you that I have detained him there. I asked, is that so? Pray tell me, are you related to us? I am your sister, said she. I said, indeed, that is why you have come. I had this conversation with her when I fell asleep. What was the result? Ramchandra rose in the morning to see that his daughter's fever had subsided. He thought it better to continue the journey slowly with her instead of helplessly waiting on the way. Encouraged by the vision of the previous night, the Holy Mother approved his idea eagerly. Scarcely had they walked a little distance when a palanquin became available. She had fever again, but as it was not severe as on the previous night, she did not lose control over herself. Neither did she mention it to anybody. They gradually reached the journey's end, and the Holy Mother came to the Master at Dakshineshwar at 9 p.m. So, that is the description of the first visit. The Master was somewhat worried to see her thus suffering from fever. He arranged for her a separate bed in his own room, lest fever should increase on account of cold, and said with a sigh, oh, you have come at long last. Alas, my Mathur is no more. Who will take care of you? On account of the good arrangements made for medicine, diet, etc. by Thakur, the Holy Mother came round in 3 or 4 days. The Master kept her in his own room for 3 or 4 days and personally supervised everything. He then made arrangements for her to live with his mother in the Navat Khana, the music room. Thus were removed the worries caused by rumors, that dust of doubt raised by rumors which was about to cloud her faith were now scattered in all directions and vanished. When the loving care and anxiety of the Master for her confirmed her in her faith that he was just his former self and that it was only the worldly minded with no power of discrimination that had spread those false rumors. Her God was the same God. Thus mused the Holy Mother, and far from having forgotten her, was as gracious to her as before. Therefore she decided in no time what she should do. She lived in the Nabat with a joyful heart and engaged herself in the service of her Lord and his mother. Her father, happy in the happiness of his daughter, stayed there for a few days and returned home joyfully. No mention is made of that bath in the Ganges. Okay? So, we covered that and now we go back to our running context and we have finished the first section of the 12th chapter, the Master shared Shampoo, and in the first section we had Holy Mother, his boy devotees, Narendra's leadership, and slowly they started intense sadhana and serving the Master. Though there were 4 there, they became 4 times by the time they went to Kashipur. So, much less about the Master himself. The section was about Mother and other disciples. About Master himself, that he came to Calcutta to meet the people. And many people started coming. So now, second section. The householder devotee. Boy devotees are described, mother is described. Now what about the householder devotees? The householder devotees took part in the service of the Master. They experienced now and then extraordinary manifestation of spirituality in the Master. So their faith in Master continues. If it is about to go down due to sickness, some extraordinary event would happen. And they would feel that they are being blessed by serving the Master, who is the embodiment of spirituality. It cannot be said that the devotees were free from anxiety after the arrangement had been made for medicine, diet, and doctor was engaged, and the 24 hours nursing in the way mentioned before above. For that, the opinions of the famous physicians of Calcutta and clearly understood that although the Master's throat disease was not altogether incurable, it was undoubtedly very difficult to cure. And it would take him a long time to be free from it. It was therefore, that means it's not a question of 10 or 12 days. It was therefore the object of their thought now how the expenses could be made for continuing the service till he finally recovered. This was natural. For of Balaram, Surendra, Ramchandra, Girish Chandra, Mahendranath and others who brought the Master to Calcutta and took charge of his treatment, no one was rich. No one of them by himself had the means of taking the full responsibility for meeting the Master's expenses together with those of his attendants after defraying his own family expenses. Urged by the current of the heavenly hope, light, bliss, and peace that flowed in their hearts from the Master's presence. By the Master's presence, in their heart, heavenly hope, light, bliss, and peace flowed in their hearts. Light is only knowledge. From the Master's presence, they took up that work without any consideration whatever for the future. Let whatever happen will help financially. But it was quite unreasonable to expect that the said holy current would have only flooded all along the minds of the householders and would know ebb when the thought of the future would disturb their peace and bliss. And as a matter of fact, the current did not flow on uniformly. But it is wonderful that as soon as such moments came, they experienced marvelous spiritual manifestations in the Master. Master is not consciously doing it, but that is happening. The needs are getting fulfilled automatically. Spiritual manifestation in the Master, which made that anxiety vanish altogether, and their hearts were again filled with new zeal and strength. An experience of unrestrained bliss carried them to a plane far beyond the reach of the intellect, and a different plane beyond the calculations. And they saw in a divine light that he, whom they accepted as the supreme guide on life's dreary path, was not only a superhuman being, but also the support of the spiritual world, the supreme goal of all living beings, the very God as man. So the avatarhood also became revealed more and more. Narayana himself, and that his birth, austerities, and other ordinary acts, even the suffering due to physical illness, were all for the good of humanity. Hmm. Facts are there, but it is not for anything selfish. It is for the good of humanity. Otherwise, how could there be bodily illness in the Supreme Person, all of whose results came true? Satya Sankalpa, and who was beyond the miseries due to birth and death, disease and dotage. So he was beyond as reality. So in the divine play, these things are happening. That is for their good. They were convinced that he was feigning illness and staying there in order that those who had not the leisure and opportunity to go up to Dakshineshwar to see him might come and get the light of the spirit kindled in their heart. So that is what they seeing the effect, they thought like that. That the disciples might get the privilege of serving him and thereby have the ideal of their lives fulfilled. So the serving also has become a great opportunity so that their life gets fulfilled. The master had come to the conclusion that the persons with the materialistic outlook resulting from Western education might be inspired to take the path of renunciation, whereupon they would lead their lives in the higher light of metaphysics based on the direct experience of the divinity as illustrated in his life. So in his life they are saying metaphysics means beyond physics. And realize the utter futility of the life of enjoyment based on the knowledge of natural science. That gives only pleasure of the world, on the strength of which they heretofore fondly considered themselves all-knowing and all-safe and made enjoyment the only goal of life. So up till now, their goal of life was enjoyment with the help of material science, and that is the end of life. But now they saw the light from his life. Why then, the disciples thought, should there be any apprehension about the scarcity of funds? Because everything happens by his will. He who had given them the privilege of serving him will also give them the power to see it through. Hmm. Sacrifice by the householder devotees. Let the reader not think that the above words are but an outburst of emotionalism on our part. We have to record these words only because we actually saw the devotees day in and day out feeling and discussing these things by virtue of the Master's company. So we saw the devotees discuss this. We have seen it with our own eyes many a time that greatly perturbed lest there should be defects in the service of the master for want of money. They assembled for consultation and returned as many times fully reassured under the impulse of the aforesaid spiritual moods of their minds. So they assembled and they found something new and filled with hope. One of them said, now he's showing their discussion. The master will make his own arrangements and heaven is not going to fall if he does not. Well, what anxiety is there as long as there is one brick upon another there, showing his house. So at my house, I can mortgage it, I can sell it and use that money up to that point. I will mortgage my house and defray the expenses of his service. Another said, I will be able to manage the service just as at the time of the marriage or illness of my. That means extra things come, then they manage. Illness of my sons and daughters. There is no cause for apprehension as long as there are a few ornaments on the persons of my wife. So he does not have a house. He will sell the ornaments of his wife and use for master service. A third again, instead of giving expression to such a feeling, actually curtailed the expenditure of his household and met unstintedly the expenses of the master service. So regulated, curtailed the expenses in the house and started using for. It was under the influence of such moods alone that Surendra personally bore the entire house rent and Balaram, Ram, Mahendra and Girish together supplied whatever else was necessary for the master and his attendants at that time. And the disease served the purpose of knitting the devotees together into an order. Because they are doing all this in cooperation, the householders through money and the boy devotees through different departments of service, they had a close-knit bond, and that is why how this Ramakrishna mission is born. The divine bliss that the devotees thus felt in their hearts had its support in the master. So support is master and help very much now in drawing the devotees together and binding them with the cord of love. To the extent that master himself said that if you say it is enough, I can give up the body now. But I want that all of you should have love for each other, and for that I am continuing with this suffering. And help very much now in drawing the devotees together and binding them with the cord of love. Although the order of the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna is said to have started as Dakshineshwar itself, it took form at Kamshapukur and the Kashipur garden and grew so fast that many of the devotees were of the opinion that one of the purposes served by Master's disease was to bring about that development. So one thing is he has come to meet people in Calcutta. Secondly, he has come to found his order by making people serve him. The devotees, three conceptions about the master. So there are different conceptions as per their capacity. The incarnation of the age, the guru, and the superman or godman. Okay. Universal teacher, huh? And appearance of man, but inside God. As time passed on, we find that the loose talks and imaginations of the devotees about the purpose of the master disease loosed up. And the time of his recovery took definite shape and divided them into several well-defined groups. That imaginations and all that, different people act different according to their temperament. The discussions on these points were strongly reinforced by the account of extraordinary events of the Master's early life and brought the devotees to wonderful conclusions. One party thought and expressed openly to all that the physical disease of the Master and the incarnation of God was simply a feigning and not reality. He had assumed it knowingly in order to accomplish some particular purpose, and when that purpose was fulfilled, he would again show himself as before. So they thought this is totally feigning, he'll become alright by himself when that purpose is served. Girish, with his very great power of imagination, was the leader of that party. All through imagination. Another party was of the opinion that the mother of the universe, in complete compliance with whose infinite will the master was left. Master himself used to say, Mother, 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 I am her instrument. So the second people believed it literally. The master was accustomed to live and do all kinds of acts, kept him ill for some time in order to fulfill a particular hidden desire of mother, her own, which would bring about the good of humanity. It could not be said whether even the master himself was able to unravel that misery. That is their thinking. Huh? He also does not know. As soon as that purpose of hers should be fulfilled, he would come round. So he will become alright. He does not know it today, but he has come to fulfill mother's desire, and when that is fulfilled, he will become alright. Still another party expressed the view that birth, death, old age, disease, etc. were natural to the body. All these would occur as long as the body lasted. That was the explanation of the master's bodily disease. So what was the necessity for so much talk and speculation on it and of bringing in a supernatural hidden cause? They were not ready to accept any conclusion about the master without analyzing it by means of reasoning and inference. And gaining the immediate knowledge of it, then they would accept. They would serve him at the risk of their lives to bring him round and do their best to cast their lives in the molds of the high ideals of human life he had had before. So two things they have to do. They have to serve him to make him all right and follow his advice, become like him, become people of the same mold. So that was more attempt. And do their best to cast their lives in the molds of high ideals of human life he had built before them and would engage themselves in religious exercises for that purpose. So they will do service and intense sadhana together. It is superfluous to say that Narendranath, as the representative of the young disciples of the Master, expressed the last mentioned view. So, body disciples all had almost like that. Narendra expressed it. The devotees' love for one another. So their opinions were different, but they loved each other because they are all serving. Although the master's disciples having different temperaments, thus held different opinions about him, giving rise to different attitudes towards him, on one point they were in perfect agreement. They had the fullest faith in the fact that they would come to the supreme good if they could live their lives according to his highly liberal teachings and could attain his grace by engaging themselves in his service. So follow his teachings and serve him with all their heart, with full beings. That was why there was amongst them no lack of love for one another. Though one party believed him to be an incarnation of God, another the Guru or Superman, and a third a God man. Body is like a man. Examples of the special spiritual manifestation of the Master as experienced by the Guru. Now that is the topic. Because they experience special manifestations, so the householders continue. Dr. Sarkar's attraction and behavior towards the Master. So around that they will show something. While Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar was in charge of the treatment of the Master, he, we have said before, put his very heart into curing him. Coming to him consecutively for a few days to see how he was in the morning, at midday, and in the evening, the doctor would prescribe medicines, etc. And having finished his duties as a physician, spend some time in religious conversations with him on those days. So he started getting benefited. And as he repeated his visits, he was being slowly attracted by the liberal spiritual ideas of the Master. There was no narrowness there. And whenever he had leisure, spent 2 or 3 hours in his company. One day when the Master was about to express his gratefulness to the doctor for spending such a great portion of his valuable time there, the doctor humorously stopped him, hurriedly stopped him. He did not allow him to thank and said in his blunt way, that was his method. Well, do you think I spend so much time for your sake only? I have also a personal interest in it. I derive great joy in talking with you. Although I met you before in Dakshineshwar, I did not find time to mix with you and know you so intimately. Busy I was with many things. I like you so much, because of your love of truth. You cannot deviate a hair's breadth in your speech and actions from what you know as true. That is the love of truth. I find elsewhere that they say one thing and do another. I cannot at all put up with that. Don't think I am flattering you. I am not a fellow of that sort. I am a graceless son of my father. As they say, I would speak out plainly even to him if he should do anything wrong. That is why I have gained notoriety for a sharp tongue. The master smiled and said, yes, I have heard it. But so far I have got no proof of it. That means for me, you have never used these words. Though you have been coming here so long. Whatever the doctor did was prompted by his love of truth as he understood it. The doctor replied, smiling, that is the piece of luck for both of us. If we had done something bad, it would have affected on me and you would have got angry. Otherwise, had anything appeared to be wrong, you would have found that Mahendra Sarkar was not a short person to keep mum. However, don't think we have no love for truth. I have run hither and thither all my life only to establish what I knew to be true. That is why I have taken to homeopathy. That is why the Association for the Cultivation of Science has been founded by him. So also with all other works of mine. Now there is some difference. Some of us, as far as we remember, hinted at that time that although the doctor had love for truth, he had love for the discovery of only relative truths, aparavidya, not leading direct to the realization of Brahman. But the master had loved all his life for supreme knowledge, paravidya, leading to the immediate knowledge of Brahman. So truth itself is different. The attainment of paravidya with the help of aparavidya. I'm coming back. I did not sit with water to begin with, so just a sip and I come back. Today, I'm reading mostly because the thing has been analyzed and it's almost like a commentary and a divine narration. So, somebody pointed out that that is lower truth and that is the higher truth. And that relates to aparavidya and that relates to paravidya. A little excited, the doctor said, that is a very bee in your bonnet. That means that is something wrong, this distinction. What are para and apara with regard to knowledge? What is higher or lower in connection with the revelation of truth? So he does not understand that difference. Again, even if, then he is arguing. Again, even if you make an imaginary distinction, it must be admitted that one will have to attain paravidya through the apara. That is his idea. And that is the idea of many people. We can comprehend God, the primeval cause of the universe, more clearly through the truths we know directly from the study of the natural sciences. Because that is due to that faith is inculcated in the Hindu mind. I don't take into consideration those fellows, the atheistic scientists. I cannot even understand what they say. They are blind, though they have their eyes intact. The eyes are there, but they are blind because they can't understand God. The atheistic scientists talk in other way. These theistic scientists are credulous. They do not follow science rigorously. But if anybody says that he has understood the whole of the endless and the beginningless God, God is Anadi Ananta, he is a liar and a cheat. A lunatic asylum is his fit residence. His words are strong. To set a limit to the knowledge of the Lord is a sign of mean understanding. Now, this point is liked by Sri Ramakrishna. So, what is positive is that Ramakrishna encourages. That is how he is influencing the doctor. The master smiled and said with a look of pleasure at the doctor, right you are. Those who ascribe a limit to God are low-minded. I cannot bear their words. Saying so, the master asked one of us to sing the song of Ram Prasad, the foremost of devotees. Who knows how Kali is? The six philosophies cannot see her. So we get the song below. Would like to, when the song comes, I would like to read in the original Bengali because songs are very difficult to translate. के जाने मन काली कमन षड दर्शने न पाय दर्शन काली पद्मवने हंस सने हंसी रूपे करे रमण ताके मूलाधारे सहस्रारे सदा योगी करे मनन आत्मा रमेर आत्मा काली प्रमाण प्रयोग लख एमन तारा घोटे घोटे विराज करें इच्छा मेर इच्छा जमन मायर उदर ब्रह्मांड भांड प्रकांड ता जानो केमन महाकाल जनेचेन कालीर मर्म अन्य केवा जाने ते मन प्रसाद भावे लोके हासे संतरणे सिंधु गमन अमर प्राण बुझेचे मन भोजना धर्वे शशि होए वामन. English. Who knows my mind how Kali is? The six philosophies cannot see her. In India, six philosophies were called orthodox because they believed in Vedas to less or more, and including Vedanta, they cannot find her truth. Kali is the Hons, as the Hansi, cohabits with the Hansa in the cluster of lotuses. Cluster of lotuses are in the Kundalini. And there the Paramatman is there as Hansa. And Kali is the Hansi. And she cohabits with him. That is the language of Ram Prasad. The yogi always meditates on her in the lotuses from the basic one to the 1,000 petal in the brain. So Muladhara Sahasra and all that up to brain, that is how the yogis meditate. There are lakhs of proofs that Kali is the self of one who is contented in the self. If we are contented in the self, our self is Kali herself. There are lakhs of proofs for this, the experiences. She, the Savior, resides according to her sweet will in the hearts of all beings as the divine will. The divine will works through different people, and that is why she sits in the hearts of all. Do you know how big is the mother's womb in which is contained the macrocosm, Brahma's universe? So Brahmanda Bhanda, that means her stomach contains all the Brahmanda. The great gatherer, that is the destroyer, alone, that is Shiva himself, alone has known the truth about Kali. Who else knows it so? Prasad sings, Prasad is the name of the poet, Ram Prasad. People might smile, but I must swim across the sea. No, to try to know her is like swimming in the sea, not crossing through big steamers. Swim across the sea. Now the last line is all important. The heart has understood, but the intellect will not. A dwarf that I am attempts at catching the moon. Man bhojana, that means mind. Anyway, we shall see that. Okay. Now, the last line is wrong. We have to find out wrong. And Thakur is correcting it. Anyway, let me read that and come. The intellect gives up the search as impossible, but the heart hankers after more. Pran bhuya means pran is satisfied, and mind is never satisfied. But Thakur says, no, mind is satisfied when it knows the difference that I cannot reach. But the heart will never be satisfied. I will find a way to get at him. That is the spirit. While he was listening to the song, he explained at intervals its import to the doctor in a low voice. When the singer sang, "My heart rests satisfied, but not the intellect," the master stopped him, saying, "Oh, it is all topsy-turvy there. It should be, my intellect rests satisfied, but not my heart." In trying to know God, the intellect easily understands that it is not for it to comprehend the endless and the beginningless God. But the heart is reluctant to feel it. It continues in its attempt to realize Him. Now he says, I am dwarf, I cannot reach. The heart will tell, by height we cannot reach, but why not jump and go there? Cut off your connection with the world and go. The doctor was charmed to hear it and said, that is it. That fellow, the intellect, is extremely mean. Meeting with a slight difficulty, it asserts it cannot be, but the heart does not approve of it. And that is how all the discoveries have been made and many more will be. That is very, very true. No logic has given any discovery of science. Only the attempt to push the limits, maybe through the faculty of imagination even, that the scientific truths are found. An important statement by the doctor here. Now something is happening at that point outside because the song is being sung. The pulse of a boy devotee in Bhav Samadhi was examined. Seeing that one or two young men were in a trance and lost normal consciousness while they were listening to the song, the doctor came to them and examined their pulse, saying to the master, it seems they have no consciousness of external objects like those in a fainting fit, like those. Observing them to regain their previous normal consciousness, when the master passed his hand over their breast and uttered the name of God into their ears in a low tone, he said to the master once more, it seems to be all your play. They went into Samadhi while listening to this song, but Thakur brought them back touch. He smiled and said, it is not my play, but His will, God's will. I am not as an individual. Their minds have not yet become distracted by wife, son, money, name, fame, etc. And that is the reason why they become merged in the thought of God as they listen to the glory of His name. So let this discussion continue. How the doctor is getting influenced and some other wonderful characteristics by which the household devotees will continue to serve. We shall see tomorrow. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakasvam Sarvadharma Swarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hare Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.